Racist manager throws out woman in Harris shirt, then she buys the store. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. Emily adjusted the strap of her purse as she stepped out of her car, glancing up at the vibrant sign of the neighborhood store, Stanton's Market. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and she had decided to run a few errands before heading to a family barbecue. She was dressed casually, wearing jeans and her favorite red, white, and blue Harris shirt, a tribute to her hero, a historical figure who had fought for equality and justice. The shirt always drew attention, and Emily wore it with pride. Inside, the store was bustling with activity. Families filled their carts with groceries, and children darted between aisles, laughing and chasing one another. Emily grabbed a basket and began browsing, her mind focused on the shopping list she had hastily scribbled that morning. She was in the produce section inspecting a batch of apples when she first noticed him. The store manager, Mr. Stanton, was standing near the checkout area, his arms crossed over his chest. He was a burly man with a stern expression, his eyes scanning the crowd as though searching for trouble. Emily caught him glancing in her direction, his gaze lingering a little too long. She brushed it off, thinking he was just doing his job. As she moved through the aisles, picking out items for the barbecue, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she turned a corner, Mr. Stanton seemed to be there, his eyes narrowing as they met hers. Emily felt a knot of unease forming in her stomach, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had done nothing wrong, she was just another customer shopping like everyone else. Finally, as she approached the checkout line, Mr. Stanton walked over, his face set in a scowl. "Ma'am," he said, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of nearby shoppers. "I need to ask you to leave." Emily froze, her basket hanging from her arm. "Excuse me," she said, her tone polite but firm. "Is there a problem?" "You're causing a disturbance," Mr. Stanton said, his eyes flicking to her shirt. "We don't tolerate that kind of behavior here." Emily's brows knitted in confusion. "What kind of behavior?" "I'm just shopping." He stepped closer, his tone turning icy. "That shirt you're wearing, it's offensive. This is a family store, and we won't have someone like you making our customers uncomfortable." Emily felt her cheeks flush with anger and humiliation. "This shirt isn't offensive," she said, her voice shaking. "It represents equality and justice, values that everyone should stand for." Mr. Stanton sneered. "You can save the speech. I don't care what it represents. I'm asking you to leave. Now." Emily looked around, hoping for support from the other shoppers, but most of them averted their eyes, unwilling to get involved. Her heart pounded as she realized she was alone in this. Reluctantly, she set her basket down and turned to leave, her head held high despite the tears stinging her eyes. As she walked out of the store, Mr. Stanton's voice followed her. "Don't come back," he called. "We don't need your kind here." Emily sat in her car for several minutes, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she fought to steady her breathing. She replayed the scene in her mind, her anger growing with each passing second. How could someone treat her like that? She hadn't done anything wrong, she was just shopping like everyone else. Pulling out her phone, she opened a social media app and began typing, her fingers trembling with a mix of rage and determination. She described the incident in detail, ending with a picture of her shirt and the caption, "Kicked out of Stanton's Market for wearing this. Equality isn't offensive. It's necessary." She hesitated for a moment before hitting post, wondering if sharing her experience would make a difference. But she knew she couldn't stay silent. This wasn't just about her, it was about standing up to injustice. Within hours, Emily's post began to gain traction. Comments flooded in, ranging from outrage to support. Friends and strangers alike shared her story, tagging the store and demanding accountability. "This is unacceptable," one commenter wrote. "No one should be treated this way." Another added, "Stanton's Market needs to address this immediately." By the next morning, Emily's post had gone viral. News outlets picked up the story, and hashtags like #JusticeForEmily and #EqualityMatters started trending. As she scrolled through the responses, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. People were listening. They cared. But along with the support came the inevitable backlash. Anonymous accounts posted hateful comments, accusing Emily of exaggerating or fabricating the incident. "She's just looking for attention," one person wrote. "This is why businesses don't want to deal with people like her." Emily's resolve hardened as she read the negative comments. She knew the truth and she wasn't going to let anyone silence her. With the encouragement of her friends and family, she decided to take the next step, holding Stanton's Market accountable. Emily contacted a lawyer, a young woman named Rachel who specialized in civil rights cases. Together, they reviewed the details of the incident and discussed the best course of action. "This isn't just about you," Rachel said during their first meeting. "It's about setting a precedent. What happened to you was wrong, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else." Emily nodded, her determination growing. "I want to fight this. Not just for me but for everyone who's ever been treated unfairly." Rachel smiled. "Then let's get to work." They filed a formal complaint against Stanton's Market, citing discrimination and harassment. The store's management was quick to issue a generic apology, claiming the incident was a misunderstanding. But Emily wasn't satisfied. She wanted real change, not empty words. As the legal proceedings began, the public rallied behind Emily. Protests were held outside Stanton's Market, with supporters holding signs that read, "Equality for all" and "Stand with Emily." The store's sales plummeted as customers boycotted in solidarity. Mr. Stanton, however, remained unapologetic. In a statement to the press, he defended his actions, claiming he had only been enforcing the store's policies. "I have a responsibility to maintain a welcoming environment for all our customers," he said. "If that means asking someone to leave because they're causing a disruption, so be it." Emily watched the statement on TV, her anger simmering. She knew this fight was far from over, but she also knew she wasn't alone. The support of her community and the determination of her legal team gave her the strength to keep going. As she prepared for the next phase of the battle, Emily couldn't help but think about how one moment of injustice had sparked a movement. She didn't know what the outcome would be, but she was ready to face whatever came next. The legal battle began to pick up steam, drawing even more attention to Emily's story. Stanton's Market found itself under intense scrutiny, with reporters camped outside the store and questions being raised about its policies. Emily's lawyer, Rachel, was relentless in her pursuit of justice, filing motions and gathering evidence to prove that Mr. Stanton's actions were rooted in discrimination. The public outcry continued to grow. Local activists organized rallies and community leaders spoke out in support of Emily. Churches, schools, and even small businesses displayed signs in their windows that read, "We stand with Emily." It was clear that her story had struck a chord, resonating with people who had experienced or witnessed similar injustices. But with the support came challenges. Emily found herself thrust into the spotlight in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her face was plastered across news articles, and she was invited to speak at events about her experience. While she appreciated the opportunity to share her story, the constant attention was overwhelming at times. One evening, as Emily prepared for a televised interview, she sat in front of her bathroom mirror, her hands trembling slightly. Daniel, her younger brother, walked in and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're doing the right thing," he said softly. "You're standing up for something bigger than yourself." Emily met his gaze in the mirror, her determination flickering back to life. "I know. It's just a lot." Daniel nodded. "It is. But you've got so many people behind you. You're making a difference." The interview aired later that night, reaching thousands of viewers. Emily spoke candidly about the incident, her voice steady despite the emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "This isn't just about me," she said, looking directly into the camera. "It's about anyone who's ever been judged or treated unfairly because of who they are or what they stand for. No one deserves to be humiliated for expressing themselves or for wearing something that represents their values." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Social media erupted with messages of support, and the hashtag Justice for Emily began trending again. People shared their own stories of discrimination, creating a powerful wave of solidarity. Among the responses was a particularly heartfelt message from a young woman named Maria. "Emily, your bravery inspired me to stand up to my boss when he treated me unfairly. Thank you for showing us that we don't have to accept injustice." Emily read the message aloud to Daniel, her eyes misty. "This is why I'm doing this," she said. "For people like Maria." Meanwhile, Stanton's Market struggled to recover from the fallout. The store's owner, a middle-aged man named Robert Mitchell, found himself in an increasingly difficult position. Sales had plummeted and employees were quitting in droves, unwilling to be associated with a business mired in controversy. Robert had inherited the store from his father, and it had always been a source of pride for him. But now he couldn't ignore the damage that Mr. Stanton's actions had caused. One morning, Robert called an emergency meeting with his management team. Mr. Stanton sat at the head of the table, his arms crossed and his expression defiant. "We need to address this situation," Robert began, his voice strained. "The store is losing money, our reputation is in shambles, and we're on the verge of a lawsuit. We can't keep ignoring this." Mr. Stanton scoffed. "This is all because of one woman and her overreaction. We don't owe her anything." Robert's patience snapped. "No, this is because of your actions, Stanton. You humiliated a customer in front of an entire store, and now we're paying the price. I trusted you to run this place responsibly, and you've let me down." Stanton opened his mouth to argue, but Robert held up a hand to silence him. "This isn't up for debate. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending further investigation." The room fell silent as Stanton rose from his seat, his face red with anger. "You'll regret this," he muttered before storming out. News of Stanton's suspension spread quickly, further fueling the public conversation. Many saw it as a step in the right direction, though Emily remained focused on the bigger picture. Her goal wasn't just to hold Stanton accountable, it was to create lasting change. Rachel encouraged her to keep pushing forward. "We're building a strong case," she said during one of their strategy meetings. "But I want to make sure we're not just fighting for a settlement. This is about setting a precedent." Emily nodded, her resolve unshaken. "I don't want their money. I want them to change." As the weeks passed, Emily began to notice a shift in the community. People who had once been hesitant to speak out were now joining the conversation, sharing their own stories of discrimination and calling for accountability from businesses and institutions. The movement that had started with one incident was growing into something much larger. But with progress came setbacks. Emily continued to receive hateful messages online, and reporters still lingered outside her home, hoping for a comment or a new angle to the story. The constant pressure weighed on her, but she refused to back down. One night, as she sat at her kitchen table scrolling through social media, she came across a post from a former employee of Stanton's Market. The woman, who had worked at the store for several years, shared her experiences of dealing with Stanton's discriminatory behavior. He treated customers and staff unfairly, especially those who didn't look or act like he thought they should, the post read. "I'm glad someone is finally holding him accountable." Emily reached out to the woman, thanking her for sharing her story. Their conversation led to a deeper understanding of the toxic culture that Stanton had fostered at the store, and Emily realized just how important it was to continue her fight. The turning point came when Rachel received a call from Stanton's Market's legal team. They wanted to settle the case, offering a significant sum of money in exchange for Emily dropping her lawsuit. But Emily wasn't interested in a quick payout. "I don't want their hush money," she told Rachel. "I want something that will make a real difference." Rachel smiled. "I thought you'd say that. Let's see how far we can take this." As they prepared for the next round of negotiations, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. The fight was far from over, but she knew she was making a difference. And no matter what happened next, she was determined to see it through. The days leading up to the next round of negotiations were filled with a tense but determined energy. Emily's case had become more than a personal battle. It was now a symbol for a broader fight against injustice. Supporters continued to rally behind her, and the media kept the spotlight firmly fixed on Stanton's Market. As Emily prepared for the meeting, Rachel laid out their strategy. "We're going to push for more than just a settlement," Rachel explained. "We want policy changes, accountability, and protections for future customers and employees. This is about creating lasting change." Emily nodded, her resolve unwavering. "I want them to know they can't just sweep this under the rug. They have to take responsibility." The meeting was held in a sleek office building downtown, with representatives from Stanton's Market sitting across the table from Emily and her legal team. Robert Mitchell, the store's owner, looked tired and worn, a stark contrast to the confident businessman he had once been. Stanton, however, was noticeably absent. "Miss Carter," Robert began, his voice strained but polite. "Let me start by saying how sorry I am for what happened to you. I never intended for my store to become a place where anyone felt unwelcome." Emily listened carefully, her face unreadable. "Actions speak louder than words, Mr. Mitchell. What are you willing to do to make this right?" Robert hesitated, glancing at his lawyers. "We're prepared to offer a substantial settlement to compensate for your experience. In addition, we're implementing new training programs for our staff to ensure something like this never happens again." Rachel leaned forward, her tone firm. "While we appreciate the gesture, it's not enough. We want concrete commitments, written policies, transparency in your hiring and training practices, and an independent oversight committee to hold your management accountable." The room fell silent as Robert considered the demands. "That's a lot to ask," he said finally. "But I understand why you're asking for it." Emily spoke up, her voice steady but impassioned. This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's ever walked into your store and been treated unfairly. You have a chance to do better, to be better." Robert met her gaze, the weight of her words sinking in. "You're right," he said quietly. "We do." The negotiations stretched on for hours, with both sides working to hammer out the details of the agreement. By the time they emerged from the conference room, the outlines of a groundbreaking settlement were in place. Stanton's Market would not only pay restitution to Emily but also commit to a series of reforms designed to create a more inclusive and equitable environment. As Emily and Rachel left the building, the tension that had gripped Emily for weeks began to ease. For the first time, she felt a sense of closure, not because the fight was over but because real progress was being made. The news of the settlement spread quickly, and the public response was overwhelmingly positive. Media outlets hailed Emily as a trailblazer, and her story inspired similar movements in other communities. People began to share their own experiences of standing up to discrimination, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond Stanton's Market. But for Emily, the victory was bittersweet. While she was proud of what she had accomplished, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to be done. The store's toxic culture had been exposed, but the scars it had left on the community would take time to heal. One evening, as Emily scrolled through social media, she came across a post from a former Stanton's employee. The woman described how the negative publicity had driven the store to the brink of bankruptcy, with sales plummeting and staff morale at an all-time low. Emily's heart sank. While she had no sympathy for Stanton, she couldn't help but feel for the employees who were now facing the fallout of his actions. Many of them had nothing to do with what had happened to her, yet they were suffering the consequences. "I wish there was something I could do to help," she said aloud. Her brother Daniel, who was sitting nearby, looked up from his laptop. "Maybe there is," he said, his eyes glinting with an idea. "What if you bought the store?" Emily blinked, caught off guard. "Buy the store? Are you serious?" "Think about it," Daniel said, leaning forward. "You've already changed the way they operate. If you owned it, you could rebuild it into something even better, a place that reflects the values you stand for." The idea seemed far-fetched at first, but the more Emily thought about it, the more it began to make sense. Owning the store would give her the opportunity to create lasting change, not just for herself but for the entire community. Emily discussed the idea with Rachel, who was initially skeptical but ultimately supportive. "It's ambitious," Rachel admitted. "But if anyone can pull it off, it's you." With Rachel's help, Emily reached out to Robert Mitchell, who was surprisingly open to the idea. "I've been looking for a way out," he confessed during their meeting. "The store has become a burden, and I don't have the energy to turn it around. If you're serious about this, I'm willing to sell." The negotiations were swift and straightforward, with Emily using the settlement money as a down payment. Within weeks, the paperwork was finalized and Emily became the proud owner of Stanton's Market. The announcement sent shockwaves through the community. People were stunned that Emily, the woman who had been humiliated and thrown out of the store, was now its owner. But as the news sank in, the community rallied behind her, eager to see what she would do with her newfound role. Emily wasted no time in making changes. She rebranded the store, renaming it Unity Market to reflect her vision of inclusivity and fairness. She implemented new hiring practices, prioritizing diversity and equity, and established a customer advisory board to ensure that everyone's voice was heard. She also reached out to former employees who had left under Stanton's management, inviting them to return and be part of the store's transformation. Many of them accepted, grateful for the chance to work in a more positive and supportive environment. The reopening of Unity Market was a joyous occasion, with the entire community coming together to celebrate. Emily stood at the entrance, greeting customers with a smile as they filed into the newly renovated store. The walls were adorned with artwork created by local artists, and the shelves were stocked with products from small, independent vendors. As she watched the store come to life, Emily felt a deep sense of pride. What had started as a moment of humiliation had turned into an opportunity to create something meaningful. She had taken control of the narrative, transforming a place of exclusion into a beacon of hope and unity. That evening, as Emily locked up the store, she reflected on how far she had come. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. She had turned pain into purpose, showing the world that even the darkest moments could lead to something extraordinary. And as she walked to her car, the lights of Unity Market shining brightly behind her, Emily knew that this was just the beginning. The grand reopening of Unity Market marked the beginning of a new chapter not just for the store, but for the entire community. The event drew a crowd larger than Emily had anticipated, with local families, former employees, and supporters from neighboring towns coming together to see the transformation firsthand. As Emily welcomed customers into the store, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. For months, she had endured humiliation, scrutiny, and relentless challenges. Yet here she was, standing at the helm of a business she had rebuilt from the ground up. Unity Market wasn't just a store, it was a symbol of perseverance, justice, and the power of community. "Thank you for coming," Emily said to an elderly woman who held her hand tightly as she entered. "It means so much to have your support." The woman smiled, her eyes twinkling. "You've done something amazing here, dear. This store was always a part of our community, but you've given it a new heart." Emily nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "That's exactly what I wanted, to make it a place for everyone." Inside, the changes were immediately apparent. The shelves were stocked with a diverse range of products, many of them sourced from local vendors and minority-owned businesses. Emily had worked tirelessly to create partnerships with suppliers who shared her vision of inclusivity and sustainability. The walls were adorned with vibrant murals painted by local artists, depicting scenes of unity and togetherness. One corner of the store had been transformed into a community space, complete with a bulletin board for local announcements, a small library of donated books, and a table where children could sit and color while their parents shopped. Emily had also introduced new policies to ensure that every customer felt welcome and respected. Signs throughout the store read, "This is a space for everyone. Hate has no home here." As customers browsed the aisles, the atmosphere was one of celebration and hope. Emily's vision for Unity Market was coming to life, and the community was embracing it wholeheartedly. Not everyone, however, was thrilled with the changes. A small but vocal group of former Stanton's loyalists criticized Emily's efforts, claiming she had ruined a beloved institution. Some even accused her of using the store for personal gain, dismissing her intentions as self-serving. Emily faced these criticisms with the same resilience that had carried her through the initial incident. She knew she couldn't please everyone, but she also knew that her actions were making a difference. One afternoon, as she was restocking shelves, a man approached her. He was middle-aged, with a stern expression and a Stanton's Market logo embroidered on his jacket. "You're Emily Carter, right?" he asked. Emily straightened, meeting his gaze. "I am. Can I help you with something?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I used to work here. I've been following what you've done with the place, and I have to admit, I wasn't sure about you at first." Emily raised an eyebrow. "And now?" The man sighed, glancing around the store. "Now I can see you've done something good here. I didn't agree with how Stanton ran things, but I didn't think anyone could turn this place around. You proved me wrong." Emily smiled, extending her hand. "Thank you. That means a lot. If you ever want to come back, we'd love to have you." He shook her hand, his grip firm. "I'll think about it." Meanwhile, word of Unity Market's transformation continued to spread. Emily was invited to speak at local events, sharing her story of resilience and the lessons she had learned along the way. Her journey resonated with audiences, many of whom had experienced their own struggles with discrimination or injustice. At one event, a young woman approached Emily after her speech. "I just wanted to thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "What you've done here, it's inspired me to stand up for myself. I've been dealing with a toxic work environment, and hearing your story gave me the courage to finally speak out." Emily felt a surge of emotion as she hugged the woman. "That's why I did this," she said softly. "To show people that they're not alone and that they can make a difference." As Unity Market thrived, Emily faced one final challenge: reconciling with Robert Mitchell, the store's former owner. While Robert had cooperated with the sale and the settlement, their interactions had been tense at best. Emily knew that if she wanted to truly move forward, she needed to address the lingering resentment between them. She reached out to Robert, inviting him to visit the store and see the changes for himself. To her surprise, he accepted. When Robert arrived, he looked around the store with a mixture of curiosity and regret. "You've done a good job here," he said finally. "Better than I ever could." Emily crossed her arms, studying him carefully. "Why did you keep Stanton on for so long? You must have known what kind of person he was." Robert sighed, his shoulders sagging. "I did. But I was too afraid to confront him. He was good at keeping the store profitable, and I convinced myself that was enough. I see now that I was wrong." Emily nodded, her expression softening. "It's never too late to make things right, Robert. You have a chance to learn from this and do better." He looked at her, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you, Emily. I'll do my best." As the months passed, Unity Market became a beacon of hope and inclusivity, drawing customers from all walks of life. Emily's leadership inspired others to take similar actions in their own communities, and her story was featured in national publications as a testament to the power of perseverance and justice. One evening, as Emily closed up the store, she stood by the front window, looking out at the quiet street. The neon Unity Market sign cast a warm glow, illuminating the sidewalk and the surrounding buildings. She thought back to the day she had been thrown out of the store, humiliated and angry. It felt like a lifetime ago. Daniel walked up behind her, holding a cup of coffee. "You've come a long way," he said, handing her the cup. Emily smiled, taking a sip. "We've come a long way. I couldn't have done this without you." He shrugged, grinning. "You're the one who made it happen. I just cheered you on." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Emily spoke again. "Do you think it was worth it? All the fights, the stress, everything?" Daniel nodded without hesitation. "Absolutely. Look at what you've built. It's not just a store, it's a symbol of what's possible when you stand up for what's right." Emily felt a swell of pride as she looked around the store. Unity Market wasn't just a business, it was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of injustice, change was possible. As she locked the door and turned off the lights, Emily knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. There were more battles to fight, more lives to impact, and more stories to tell. And she was ready for all of it. As Unity Market solidified its place in the community, Emily found herself busier than ever. The store's transformation had drawn customers from neighboring towns, many of whom came not just to shop but to see the embodiment of a story that had inspired them. Emily embraced her new role with determination, juggling the day-to-day operations of the business while continuing to advocate for inclusivity and justice. One morning, as she stood behind the checkout counter helping a customer, a familiar face walked through the door. Emily froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat as she recognized Mr. Stanton. He looked older than she remembered, his once confident demeanor replaced by a slouched posture and downcast eyes. "Emily," he said, his voice hesitant. I wanted to talk to you." The room seemed to go quiet as customers and staff turned to watch the exchange. Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. "What are you doing here, Mr. Stanton?" "I came to apologize," he said, his voice barely audible. "For everything." Emily studied him, her emotions a whirlwind of anger, disbelief, and curiosity. Part of her wanted to tell him to leave, to remind him of the humiliation he had caused her. But another part of her, the part that had always believed in second chances, urged her to listen. "Come to my office," she said finally, motioning for him to follow. Once they were seated in her office, Stanton hesitated, his hands trembling as he wrung them together. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything happened," he began. "Losing my job, seeing the store change, it made me realize how wrong I was." Emily leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "What exactly are you apologizing for, Mr. Stanton? Throwing me out? Humiliating me? Or ruining this store's reputation?" "All of it," he said, his voice cracking. "I let my biases cloud my judgment. I hurt you and I hurt this community. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to tell you that I'm sorry." Emily studied him for a long moment, searching his face for sincerity. "Why now? Why come here after all this time?" He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "Because I saw what you've done with this place. You turned it into something beautiful. I wanted to be part of the solution, but I know I've already done too much damage." Emily tapped her fingers on the desk, weighing her options. She could send him away and no one would blame her. But she had always believed in the power of redemption, and if Stanton was truly willing to change, perhaps this was an opportunity to turn an enemy into an ally. "You're right, you caused a lot of harm," she said finally. "But if you're serious about making amends, there's something you can do." Stanton looked up, his eyes filled with cautious hope. "Anything. I want you to talk to the staff and the customers you hurt," Emily said. "Explain what you've learned and why you're apologizing. And I want you to volunteer in this community, show people through your actions that you've changed." He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "I'll do it. Thank you, Emily. You didn't have to give me this chance, but I'm grateful you did." Stanton's journey toward redemption was met with mixed reactions. Some in the community were skeptical, unwilling to forgive him for his past behavior. Others admired his willingness to own up to his mistakes and take steps to make things right. Emily stayed out of the public discourse, focusing instead on the progress being made at Unity Market. The store continued to thrive, becoming a hub for community events and initiatives. Emily partnered with local schools to host workshops on diversity and inclusion, and she created a scholarship fund to support young people pursuing careers in social justice. Her vision for Unity Market had expanded far beyond its walls. It was now a force for positive change throughout the town. One of the most rewarding aspects of Emily's work was seeing how her efforts inspired others. One day, a teenage girl named Mia approached her after a community event. Mia was shy and soft-spoken, but her eyes lit up as she talked about her dreams of becoming a civil rights lawyer. "You're the reason I want to do this," Mia said, clutching a notebook filled with scribbled notes and ideas. "Watching you stand up for what's right, it made me believe I could do it too." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "You can do it, Mia. And if you ever need help, you know where to find me." Mia beamed, her confidence growing with every word of encouragement. "Thank you, Miss Carter. I won't let you down." As Unity Market approached its one-year anniversary under Emily's ownership, the town came together to celebrate the milestone. The event was a festive affair with live music, food trucks, and activities for families. Emily stood at the center of it all, marveling at how far they had come. Daniel joined her, a grin spreading across his face as he surveyed the crowd. "You did it, Emily. This is everything you dreamed of and more." "I didn't do it alone," she said, nudging him playfully. "You've been here every step of the way." "Still," he said, his tone turning serious. "You took something broken and made it beautiful. That's not something everyone can do." Emily's eyes scanned the crowd, landing on Stanton, who was helping set up chairs for a group of elderly attendees. He caught her gaze and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step toward healing. That evening, as the festivities wound down, Emily stood on a small stage to address the crowd. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the gathering, and the air buzzed with a sense of unity and possibility. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "A year ago, I never imagined I'd be standing here, speaking to all of you as the owner of this store. But this journey has taught me that even the darkest moments can lead to something extraordinary." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the faces of friends, family, and community members. Unity Market isn't just a store, it's a testament to what we can achieve when we come together. It's a reminder that every voice matters and that standing up for what's right is always worth it. The crowd erupted in applause, and Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had fought hard for this moment, and it was more than she could have ever hoped for. As the night came to a close, Emily stood outside the store, watching as families and friends trickled away, their laughter lingering in the air. Daniel joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "You okay?" he asked. Emily nodded, her smile tinged with exhaustion. "Yeah, more than okay. I'm happy." He grinned. "Good. You deserve it." As she sipped her coffee, Emily reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The humiliation, the fight, the triumph, it had all been worth it. Unity Market wasn't just a place where people shopped. It was a symbol of resilience, hope, and the power of community. And as the lights of the store flickered in the distance, Emily knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the months passed, Unity Market continued to flourish, becoming more than just a store. It was a gathering place, a symbol of change and a pillar of the community. Emily's vision had been realized in ways she couldn't have imagined when she first decided to fight back against the injustice she'd faced. But with success came new opportunities, challenges, and moments that would test her resolve. One afternoon, as Emily walked through the store checking on inventory, she overheard a conversation between two customers in the produce aisle. A young man and an older woman were discussing the changes Unity Market had undergone since Emily took over. "I wasn't sure about coming back here after everything that happened," the man admitted, placing a bag of oranges into his cart. "But now, it feels like this place belongs to the community again." The older woman nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's more than a store now, it's a place where people feel seen and valued. That's rare." Emily's chest swelled with pride as she listened, but the moment was interrupted by the sound of her name being called from the front of the store. "Miss Carter?" A young man in a suit stood near the customer service desk, a leather briefcase in hand. He looked slightly out of place among the casual atmosphere of the market. Emily approached, curious. "That's me. How can I help you?" The man extended his hand. "Miss Carter, my name is Aaron Mitchell. I'm Robert Mitchell's nephew." Emily's brows furrowed as she shook his hand. "I didn't know Robert had family in town." Aaron smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I've been out of the picture for a while, but I've been following what you've done with the store. I have to say it's impressive." Emily studied him, unsure where the conversation was heading. "Thank you. Robert left a strong foundation and I've worked hard to build on it. Aaron's smile faltered. That's actually why I'm here. As Robert's closest living relative, I have a vested interest in the store's legacy. I'd like to discuss a potential partnership, or perhaps even a buyout. Emily's stomach dropped. A buyout? Aaron nodded. You've done an incredible job turning things around, but I believe I could help take it to the next level. With my business experience and resources, we could expand Unity Market into a franchise, bringing your vision to more communities. Emily's mind raced. The idea of expanding Unity Market was intriguing, but the thought of relinquishing control, or worse, seeing her vision diluted, made her uneasy. I appreciate your interest, she said carefully, but Unity Market isn't just a business to me. It's a reflection of this community and its values. I'd need to be sure any changes wouldn't compromise that. Aaron nodded, his expression unreadable. Of course. Why don't we set up a time to talk in more detail? I think you'll find my proposal compelling. That evening, Emily shared the encounter with Daniel as they sat on her back porch, the soft glow of string lights illuminating their faces. What do you think he really wants? Emily asked, her voice tinged with concern. Daniel frowned, sipping his coffee. It sounds like he sees an opportunity to cash in on what you've built. Expanding Unity Market could be a good thing, but only if it's done the right way. Do you trust him? Emily shook her head. I don't know him well enough to say, but I'm not willing to hand over control to someone who doesn't share our values. Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. Then you need to make that clear from the start. If he's serious about working with you, he'll respect your vision. The following week, Emily met with Aaron to discuss his proposal. He laid out an ambitious plan for expansion, complete with marketing strategies, potential locations, and projected revenue. It was clear he had done his homework, but as he spoke, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that his vision didn't align with hers. This is an impressive plan, she said when he finished, but my priority has always been the community. Unity Market isn't just about profits, it's about creating a space where everyone feels welcome. Aaron leaned back in his chair, his smile faint. I understand that, but scaling up means making compromises. We can't replicate the exact atmosphere of this store in every location. What we can do is bring the core principles to a wider audience. Emily's jaw tightened. And what happens when those compromises dilute what makes Unity Market special? I've worked too hard to let that happen. Aaron's expression hardened slightly. Emily, I respect your passion, but this is a business. If you're not willing to adapt, you risk limiting its potential. Emily stood, her decision clear. Then maybe expansion isn't the right path for Unity Market, at least not the way you're proposing it. I'm not willing to sacrifice our values for growth. Aaron's face was unreadable as he gathered his papers. I hope you reconsider. This store has potential far beyond what you've imagined. As he left, Emily felt a mixture of relief and resolve. She had made the right choice even if it meant turning down an opportunity for growth. Unity Market's strength came from its connection to the community, and she wasn't willing to jeopardize that. The incident with Aaron reinforced Emily's commitment to her vision, and she redoubled her efforts to ensure Unity Market remained a place of inclusion and hope. She launched new initiatives, including a monthly community night where local artists, musicians, and small business owners could showcase their talents and products. One such night brought in a local poet named Lila, who performed a spoken word piece about resilience and unity. Her words moved the audience to tears, and Emily felt a deep sense of pride as she watched people come together, inspired by the art and the sense of belonging. This is what it's all about, Daniel said later that evening as they cleaned up after the event. You've created something bigger than a store, Emily. You've created a movement. As Unity Market approached its second anniversary, Emily reflected on how far she had come. The challenges she had faced, the humiliation, the backlash, the difficult decisions, had all led to this moment. She had turned a place of exclusion into a beacon of hope, proving that even the smallest actions could spark meaningful change. One day, as she stood by the front window watching customers stream in and out, a young boy approached her. He was no older than 10, clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers. Are you Miss Emily? He asked, his voice shy but steady. Emily knelt to his level, smiling. I am. What's your name? Caleb, he said, holding out the flowers. These are for you. My mom says you're a hero. Emily's throat tightened as she accepted the flowers, her eyes misty. Thank you, Caleb. That means more to me than you know. As Caleb ran back to his mother, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. Unity Market wasn't just a store, it was a testament to the power of standing up for what was right, even when the odds were stacked against you. And as the sun set over the town, casting a golden glow on the Unity Market sign, Emily knew that this was just the beginning. The fight for justice, equality and community was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever came next, united with the people who had made it all possible.